Guys, hello, welcome to day number 11 of the 25 days of mental health. Today's subject is going to be self-harm. It's a subject that I've actually never spoken about. And it's only because of this 25 days that I've actually started to think more about things from my past. Things from my past that I maybe don't do day to day, or I do now, or any time closely related, so maybe the past few years or anything like that. So it's been a while back since I'd done these things, but I guess it's good to reflect because it allows me to rethink about the positions I was in at that time, and what I actually do now differently, which I think is quite important to reflect on. So I'm going to go back to academy, and it would be secondary 3. So I would have been 12, 11, 13, 14 years old. And I used to take a pin at home. So like a needle pin, a sewing pin, or sewing needle. And before I would go for a shower, or sometimes a bath, or sometimes just at night before bed, I would take a needle and I would start gouging into my back. I would start gouging into my back and scraping my back in lots of different places on my back. Just enough that it would pierce the surface and basically rip my back. And to visualize that, it would look like, just for instance, if you were getting dragged through a thorn bush and there was loads of needles, that's basically what my back would look like. And why did I do that? Now, at the time, a lot of it was probably based on my anxiety for different things. So if I had a talk the next day at school, or I had an essay coming up, or some sort of school assignment, it was mainly to do with the school related things and how it made me feel. And I would do that it was easier to process that pain in my back than it was to process the thoughts about what I was going to go into. Because it's bloody sore getting all that on my back. At the time, it wasn't really necessarily that initial pain, because my pain threshold's always been really high, so it wasn't very sore. But it was more the fact that I could feel it during the day or going to bed, or, when I got into the shower, it would really sting. It would really sting. Jesus. Again, I've used this subject today because I really want to make it as natural as possible, and I'm honestly I'm putting my head back into that times, and I'm thinking, why the hell was I doing that? But at the time, it was perfectly normal what I was doing. I didn't really know anybody else that done it. Nobody spoke about it. Nobody spoke about self-harm. I mean, I think I remember being in secondary 1 and 2, and there was a person in my science class, very, very popular person, that had some marks on her wrist from self-harm. And I think that was the only initial thought that I could relate to, was somebody would cut their wrists that maybe wanted to die. But I'm doing it and I didn't want to die or anything like that. I just done it because the pain was easier to process than the thought of the schoolwork and everything. But that was the relation for me, was the case of I was feeling over anxious about some things that I can relate to. That's all I can really think about then, because it was so long ago. You're talking about 15 years ago that I'd done that, 16 years ago. But now, bringing that into my adult life, things I used to do was punch things like walls or something, a hard object that I could really give a good punch to. And I never used to want to punch to break my knuckles, although sometimes I have actually broken knuckles. But I just wanted to be able to punch something really hard, maybe just to to release a frustration and to release an emotion, because sometimes it got too intense in my head that there was no release. So for me, my way of coping with it was maybe going for a walk or going for a run and just laying into something really hard. I would never hit something to break it. So that's why I would always hit maybe a brick or something really hard, or maybe a lamppost, because I knew that I wasn't actually going to damage the thing, and if I was going to punch it, it really was going to hurt. And anyone that's watching this just now that doesn't really understand, you'll probably think that is absolutely mental, because it is. But there'll be people out there that will do something similar to that. Jesus, yeah. So now when it gets a little bit cold, my hands stiffen up a little bit, and that's a reminder of, now I see it as a reminder of the strength that it's given me in my day-to-day life. So, when I'm challenged with something, I'll be like, right, let's tackle this head on, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to have to inflict pain on myself to get through it, which is obviously not the case now, that I've obviously learnt to be able to process these feelings in a way that I can, one, understand them, appreciate them, but actually action them, rather than it taking a hold of me and me not being able to do something, and me thinking that the only way to process that feeling is by going out and punching the nearest thing to me. And it's taken me a lot of time to process that, a hell of a lot of time. And I wouldn't say I looked for pain. I looked for an output, and pain for me was something I was able to express easier than my thoughts and my emotions. But the only difference with that is that pain is temporary. When pain goes, you're left with that void still there of your emotions, and it can consume you. It can consume you, and it consumed me. And it wasn't until there was more things I could actually do. So, like, say for instance, I was in a position at school where, you're looking at people's opinions. You can't actually deal with people's opinions unless you can appreciate them and process them, which I couldn't do. I would worry about them, and my way of coping with worry was self-harm. But now as an adult, for instance, if there's a challenge now, I know how to deal with the challenge, but I guess when you're younger, you don't really know what to do. And I remember being at PE, and I used to take my top off and instantly put my back to a wall, so nobody would question why I've got the scratches on my back. But then on the flip side of that, I was very self-conscious of my body, so I would find myself kind of cuddling my belly, trying to put a t-shirt on, hide my back, and then very occasionally somebody would maybe say, "Oh, Mike, what's that in your back?" There must have been a pin in my bed when I was sleeping, and you would make up all sorts. I would make up all sorts, just to evade the honesty, because I couldn't explain it, because I didn't understand it. But self-harm is very real. And it's not necessarily, when you see somebody that has self-harm, it doesn't necessarily mean they want to kill themselves. I didn't want to kill myself at all. Nothing like that. Not at that time. For me, it was just a release. And it was a coping mechanism that I done that worked for me. But I wish when I was younger, somebody actually questioned it. I wish maybe my classmates knew about it or something. But, I'm really hoping that, in this decade, in this generation, that it's talked about a lot more. And that those adults that have maybe experienced something similar can come forward and maybe share their story with people, and prevent people from having to go through that similar experience that I went through, because it was horrible. It was really horrible. But that's just my experience, and I just wanted to share that with people that can maybe relate to it, that I've been there and I've done it as well. And what I will do is, I don't have all the answers, don't have all the solutions, but I will put something in the comments that people can maybe go to for reference. So guys, that is my number 11 of the 25 days of mental health. Take care. Goodbye.